All set. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 15th special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Our intention tonight is to review the revised operating budget proposals from both the city and the Board of Education. Before we get started, Madam Clerk, may I get you to call a roll, please?
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Mr. Andrasco.
Mr. Andrasco will be joining
Okay,
at about 6:45. He had a previous
that's right.
business commitment that he
You did say
had to
that.
attend.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Jalret,
Here.
and Mr. Kasimis. I believe you said he would not be here today.
He will not.
And Ms. Yang.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you all very much. Before I turn it over to the mayor for any opening remarks, let me suggest how I would like our discussion to run tonight. The intention of tonight is for both the city side and the Board of Education to present their revised budget proposals to us. I would suggest that we allow each to go through their presentation, asking questions of clarity where needed and where appropriate. But then we take this information, digest it, and in our meeting on Monday, the 20th, that is when we come prepared with any additional recommendations, proposals, amendments to either of the budgets that we would like to consider. We will vote on each and any one of those proposals, recommendations, and amendments during the meeting Monday, as well as getting to a final budget by Monday per the requirements of the city charter. So unless anyone has any major concerns with that.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, so we'll do our presentation on the city side, Board of Ed will do theirs. Do you want to go right into executive session after that?
Thank you, Jared, for reminding me of that. Yes, we will see in the city side that there are some recommendations that involve personnel and restructuring. Please hold any and all questions on those topics. We will go into executive session per the city charter and requirements for discussions on that. We will need to return from executive session to adjourn the meeting, however. So thank you, Jared, very much for pointing that out. And yes, I would like both the city and the Board of Ed to present their proposals. Then we'll move into executive session, return, and adjourn as appropriate after that. So with that, Madam Mayor, opening remarks from you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Abrams, and good evening to everyone. And yes, we're going to present now our updated operating budget recommendations. Thank you so much to the Finance Department for all of your hard work on this budget. And thank you again to the department heads for your diligence in finding any savings that we could. And thank you to my fellow members here on the BET, to the City Council for their continued work as we finalize these numbers. So when we started out, I said it here and I said it in other places that I was quite shocked by the numbers. The city side alone was at an over 10% increase, and we found ourselves in a really challenging position due to the skyrocketing healthcare costs, collective bargaining agreements with 6 unions, and the revaluation phase in. At that time, the BET tasked departments to try to cut 10% across the board. So we took that exercise very seriously and we tried to find savings everywhere possible. But we want to make sure to ensure public safety and crucial services to our residents. And because of that, we really found it impossible to do the full 10% from our departments. But I am proud to say, through all of our diligence, we were able to get the city budget much lower, down to 8.5%, with an overall increase between the city and the Board of Education to 6.54%. So those reductions include the following, and we'll see this in more detail when Jared presents. Minor restructuring and not filling some vacant positions. working with our actuaries to change some assumptions in the pension valuation, which is going to account for about $2 million of this reduction. We're going to fund the pension ADEC at least 90%. We're adjusting the net tax levy decrease. We're also creating policies around conferences and travel, food, and even office supplies in City Hall, which we feel are necessary, but also will find savings. We're implementing a motor vehicle mill rate increase, and there are also increases in recreation and parks fees. Like I said before, every little bit helps, and the work isn't finished here because my plan is throughout the year to continue to look for places to save and to be more efficient. We're also constantly looking at revenue generating ideas to take the burden off of our taxpayers. Finally, I do want to point out, as I have mentioned before, that I am going to support, and I'm speaking for myself personally, and I am recommending that we support what the City Council approved, which is the 4.9% increase for the Board of Education. And let me just explain why. I feel like my most important job here is to heal our community from the trials and tribulations we had last year with the budget, as well as being as fiscally responsible as we can. And it's really easy to look back, point fingers at who's to blame for what's happened in the past. But I think it's really important in healing our community to look forward. And after many conversations with Dr. Estrella and Mr. Osmani, as well as taking part in the Board of Education meetings, hearing from board members, from staff, from parents and students, as well as the points made by members of the City Council, I feel it's in the best interest of our schools and our community to support that 4.9% increase. This will keep services as they currently have them in place, continue to support our students and staff, and hopefully heal some of what transpired in the last year. So thank you again, everyone, for your very hard work on this particular budget. I know it hasn't been easy, and I'm very much looking forward to our continued dialogue. And I also, I really want to thank Jared and Tom and Kim and the direction, Jared, that you have been taking the city in, working so closely with you over these past couple of months. I know some of the changes that you brought in last year were really, really important, such as moving, the maintenance from the capital budget to the operating budget, because it's really important we maintain our properties, right? But I also just, your philosophy, really gels with, what I think is best for our residents. And so I just really want to highlight the work that you have done and your vision, and thank you for that. So that being said, I'm going to turn it back to you, Chair Abrams.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, for the opening remarks. Jared, I will turn it to you to go through the city-side budget presentation then.
Very well. First, thank you, Mayor, for the kind remarks, and just echo what you said about the team, Tom and Kim and Chitsmay and her crew are all obviously vital to that, as well as working with the department heads in these difficult times. So thank you for that. Okay, I have a very brief slideshow. Just give me a minute to share it.
Excuse me, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Was there anything sent out ahead of time that we should be looking at? Okay, thank you.
No. All right. And just to let you know, kind of going forward, what our thinking is, because we have a couple of different steps here between the revised budget and then whatever the BET lands on as a final proposal. So we have some details, all the details about all the adjustments within here. And that the intent would be after the BET finalizes your proposal, your budget and the city's budget, then we would put this into a book, into a full-blown budget book, just so you understand what's going on, rather than put it into the book now and then everybody having to hunt and peck for where the changes are. We've consolidated them all within here. So with that, let me move forward here. Okay, so high level. We have a few columns here. One is for comparison, the FY26 revised budget, and then the mayor's original budget and the mayor's revised budget with a comparison, original to revised. As the mayor said, going to 4.91% on the Board of Education side. That amounts to 2.25, essentially $2.25 million increase on the Board of Ed side compared to the original budget proposal. On the city side, we started at 10.72% increase with these reductions. We're able to get that down to 8.5%, which is a savings of over $4.5 million. And then overall, the overall budget increase with the Board of Ed and the city together goes from 7.04% down to 6.54%, with a total net savings of about $2.3 million. So what does this mean for the taxpayers? We have two different charts, two different tables here. One is again, the mayor's original budget and mayor's revised budget. And down below at the very bottom is a difference in the median tax bill. And so for comparison purposes, just to give you one example, if you look at the first district, and the third row down there, FY27 change in tax bill of 1,140, that would be the increase going from FY26 to 27 in the original proposal. In this proposal for District 1, the change would be $1,063 would be the increase. So you got 1140 compared to 1063. So it's a $77 difference in between the two proposals. And you can work your way through each of the districts and see what those changes are for each district. So what were we categorized each of the adjustments, and the mayor spoke to a lot of these. There were some updated spending projections, meeting with the departments. There were some proposed personnel changes and minor restructuring. Pension changes are in two categories. One would be most likely a proposed reduction to not fully fund the ADEC, but to get very close to do that, at least 90%. But the other change would be to change some of the assumptions. For example, in talking, we have a new actuary that we're working with this year, and so they're looking at it with a new set of eyes, and looking at past assumptions. As you may or may not know, the city reduced the discount rate, which is basically the assumed rate of return when calculating the valuation of the pension funds, and got it down to 6.5%. I believe it started somewhere around 7 or 7.2, and over the years got it down to 6.5%. When the new actuaries looked at that, and they looked at our projections and our history of returns, and they believe that we could responsibly go up to 7%, back up to 7%. However, the recommendation is to go to 6.75%. So in other words, there's a case to be made for going to 7, but 6.75 is what they're recommending. So between we plan to propose certain changes to assumptions like that. And there may be a couple other ones. And to the extent that those don't reach the savings target, there would be a very minor reduction in the ADEC, under 100%. And one thing I want to say, one other thing I want to say about that, the pension funds are funded at between, depending on the fund, between 70 and 80%. So even at 90%, we're still making up ground and continuing to chip away at the unfunded liability. We are proposing new travel and meals policies, which will generate some savings for us. Not significant, but these are important policies to put into place. The net tax levy as a result of these, the spending reductions will go down. Motor vehicle rate will go up as we started doing last year and are authorized by law to take it as high as the lowest real estate mill rate. And then there were some additional proposals from Park and Rec that were generated by a consultant that they worked with to increase some of their fees. And I'll go through those details. So these are all the line items. It's less than 2 pages here. I'll point out some of the major ones on looking at the fire department. In particular, the stations and buildings, we went back and reconciled with the building department, moving the maintenance of those of the fire stations. We went back and reconciled, and there was some savings there of $221,000. Same thing on the wages. There, for the most part, there had been a history of vacancies that were budgeted, and headcount that was budgeted. And so we went back and reconciled that for some fairly significant changes that we have I've kind of teased this a little bit in past meetings. So that was almost 700,000 in savings there. I'll hit the sports division. As you know, there was the creation of the Sports and Recreation Activity Fund under Park and Rec. And again, this is more of a reconciliation going back to them and looking at what could also be moved over to that fund. The rest of these are fairly minor, as I talked about some of the policy changes, and so you see the bottom 4 items there. Those are across the board. These are across the board reductions of 25% in advertising, 25% in business expense, 50% in seminar and conference fees, and 10% in office supplies. Looking forward, Fire believes that what we would typically put in for retirement payouts, that they're not seeing any on the horizon, so we were able to reduce that amount. And then some smaller changes with regard to uniforms. I talked, I think, quite a bit on the pension side of things. And then there's citywide wages and benefits, which we'll go into in the executive session and talk a little more in detail on that. And that's the end of my presentation.
Any questions of clarity? Troy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jarrett, for your work. I have to say, I'm very pleased to see the reduction on the city side But I have a few questions for the mayor, if you don't mind. I didn't hear anything mentioned about the AAA rating, which I always say and I use as my guardrails. So far, you presented this. Do you feel confident that we will continue to have our AAA rating with your revised budget?
I do, and and again, working really closely with Jared on this, um, I think that some of the main reasons is, we have worked so much on our capital budget last year and this year to reduce our debt service and our bonding. But also, the commitment that I have made, along with Jared's very fine, vision and advice on funding the internal services fund, because we know that that's a part of what they look at, and then another factor, we're not. We're being very careful about what we are reducing from our fund balance. So we're keeping a close eye on that. So, based on, his conversations with our actuaries and conversations I've had with him, I do feel confident that we will keep it.
And
I mean, you can't be 100% certain, right? Right? There's no certainties in life, but I feel pretty confident that we are moving in the right direction.
but your
And
guidance has been to put together a budget that meets the city's needs, but keeping in mind that a AAA rating is required. That's what you're standing by.
I am standing by. I am not willing to risk our AAA bond rating.
Thank you. And the fund balance, how much are we using out of the fund balance, Jared? And how much are we using in the contingency with your revised budget?
its fund balance stays at 7 million, as it was in the original budget, and the contingency stays at 500,000. That didn't change.
Okay. And you feel confident, like the mayor says, with the tweaking the pensions, and you said this is not a restructuring and skipping a payment, is it?
No, sir. No.
So you feel
No.
confident talking to our advisors and the new actuaries that reducing the pension, which is obviously one of our biggest strengths of the city, will not audit settle have a automatic downgrade.
Definitely not. I can't say for sure that we would not get a negative outlook, but in talking to our financial advisor on the pension changes in particular, uh, for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you look at especially the recent returns on our investments in the fund, they've been well over the amounts that's considered in the discount rate. This year, I believe year to date, we're at, depending on whether depending on the fund, somewhere around 13%. Last year, we ended the year at 10%, so far exceeding the 6.5% discount rate. And then when I talked to our advisor about the pension changes, obviously he didn't say, yes, you should absolutely do that, but did not express that change would result in any change in our rating. And now, if we did it another year and another year after that, then there would be concern. And if we start showing a habit of doing this, but and by doing this, I mean the underfunding of the ADEC. The assumption changes are legitimate and warranted, and we can make the case for those. But the underfunding of the ADEC would be problematic over multiple years.
Okay, I'm glad you're saying what you're saying, and I hope that's the case. And keep in mind, when I'm looking for what I'm talking for myself, when I'm looking for reductions, I don't think these reductions go on forever. I've been saying all along, I want these reductions to go until we finish our phase in. Our phase in was originally, we set a 3% mark on it. And now it's it's well over that with this addition. The other thing now regarding the Board of Ed, and I know they're going to speak in a second, but I have to say, Mayor, I'm looking at your mayor's recommended operating budget on 325.
Mhm.
And it's very confusing to me that you started it. You were the one that's 4%. And I agree with
Understood.
that. And by the way, I agree with that 100%.
Mhm,
I'm still not sure. I listened to that city council meeting right after our
mhm,
bond.
mhm.
Lindsay spoke at our bond council, and I was kind of surprised that we went where we went. Can you explain? Because I don't understand why I listened to that meeting, and I'm not quite sure why they went to that number they went to. And it was
Well,
unanimous, 40.
I don't want to speak for the council,
Well,
they,
I'm asking you. You voted
yeah,
for it.
I know I had no vote on the city council.
Or you approved that you just recommended it at
Yeah,
4.9?
yeah. So let me just say, clarify that. I did not vote. I did not approve anything. That was the city council. That was a unanimous vote of the city council.
Yeah.
But as I listened to the conversation and, you know, uh, I found the arguments very compelling. But I think more importantly, as I continued working with Dr. Estrella and Mr. Osmani and recognizing that, if you think about, they initially asked for 6.5%, right? But listening to what it might mean to make what it would mean to reduce from 6.5% to 4.9%, they're making some pretty, challenging and difficult cuts. And this was, I think, the real factor for me, Troy, and why I've decided that I'm going to support it, is that from that point, like going down from the 4.9% means cuts at the school level, at the district level that will affect our kids. And and that's where I think about what happened last year and the fear in the families of, what it could mean, programs, that are really important to our families. That's what we risk, right, by going below that. So that is, one of the reasons, but probably the most compelling reasons why I've decided to support the 4.9% myself.
Okay. Oh, as you know, being on the council for 9 years, or excuse me,
Mhm.
8, and mayor, I'm on it 9 also. Um, this didn't just happen overnight with the Board of Ed, and you called it a crisis last year. It's been building, it had been building, and I could see why you did the original 4%. And I would thought that was very thoughtful,
Mhm.
and that's my comments.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Troy. And again,
Understood.
we'll get to more on that
I know.
both
Yeah.
after Linda's presentation and on our meeting Monday.
Thank you, Mr.
Yang,
Chairman.
Ms. Yang, before I get to you, I believe Mr. Andrasko's hand was up earlier. Joe, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
No, I had a question for Jared, but it's answered by this sheet actually really well. This is a great layout.
Okay, thank
Also,
you.
I joined at 6:50 for the
Thank
record.
you. Let the record show that you joined at 6:50 p.m. Thank you. Ms. Yang,
I'm sorry, which sheet are you referring to, Joe? Am I missing something here?
The one that's being shared on screen.
Oh, okay, okay. So I guess I can't, I'm not looking at it right now. Um, okay, so I know Linda will go through this, but can you remind me from last year's discussion where we voted on the increase for the Board of Ed and what was the amount of additional funds that came up from the city and the state, um, and how much those funds were. And so I want to understand the baseline on all of these increases.
Jared, do you want to take
Sure.
that?
Yeah, happy to. So it happened there were a couple of different meetings where the changes happened. In one of them there was a uh, transfer of $2 million to the Board of Education. And that was for FY25. And then in addition to that, there was another 4.5 in total So in one meeting, it was 2 million and 1.5. And then later on in the fall was when the 3 million from the ultimately originating from the state funding, the state $10 million when that happened. So maybe more directly to your point, the amount, my recollection is right, and Lunda may correct me, but I believe the amount that was included in the FY 26 budget was 4.5 million.
So effective, and that 4.5 million is considered the baseline for this year's budget, by which we look at 4%,
That's correct.
4.9%. So if we were to go back and look at what we had originally approved, and then these funds came in, which I thought was a one-time fix, but let's go through that. That the funds that came in were 4.5 million. So that's an additional 2%. So really, based upon where we were last year compared to now where we are this year, we're looking at 6.9%. If we don't include the 4.5 that came up at the last minute. Is that correct?
That's a perspective that, that's one,
No,
that's,
It is,
that's,
it is,
that's a
it's
way,
not a
that's a way
perspective,
to
it's
look at
a,
it. I think
it's a correct statement from the original FY 26 baseline budget before incremental funds were provided. It is a correct statement. We
So
can argue whether that should have been the baseline for FY 27 compares or not. But yes, Ms. Yang, you are correct. From the FY 26 original baseline, your percentages are correct.
okay.
Can I add something to just on this topic? Is I personally, and just through my experience from being on the council, from being a parent, and from being a teacher, I would like to see us get away from that post-budget addition, because and which is why I felt that just including that 4.5 in our base this year, it's like what we learned last year is the schools needed that to meet their needs, right? So so I felt that it was the right thing to do to include that 4.5 in the base because that was the base of what they needed. And I think rather than year after year of, parents, being scared and, and like, the drama that we go through every year, I think it's of, and then finding these funds at the end, I think it's better to just be upright and say, this is what we have, this is what we can afford. If we find in a situation where, we're after the budget and a special appropriation is needed, and we have found on the city side after our reconciliation, we have a little, more than we thought we did, I think it's, then we do those special appropriations. But this up and down and, emotional drama that, our parents go through year after year after year, I think it's important that we stop it.
I understand, Madam Mayor, and I tend to agree with you. I'm simply saying that from a pure mathematical perspective,
Hmm.
Ms. Yang's
Yep.
calculations are correct. That's
Yep.
all.
Yep.
and,
Okay.
and last year that 4.5 million was not borne by the city's taxpayer. Whereas as we incorporate it into this year's budget, that now becomes the baseline, which is now this year's and future years, the taxpayers' burden.
So, partially, because the $10 million that we got from the state is for 2 years, so included, factored into the FY 27 budget is an additional $3 million, that would go toward the Board of Education.
So it's 1.5 then from our local taxpayers, not the full 4.5.
Right.
And that 3 million is in the 4.9, or is that separate?
The the 3 million is within the is factored into the amount that the Board of Ed would receive
Okay,
Jared,
so
I
in the
don't, I don't
4.9.
understand the answer to that question. Is
I
it
guess maybe
inside
I'm not
of,
sure I understand the question. So
is the $3 million included in the $259.3 million number? Or is it incremental to that?
it is incremental to that.
so really the budget is 262.
This so now I think we're going back to we may be going back to your original analysis.
No, I think it's a simple question, Jared. The mayor's proposed revised budget for the Board of Ed is $259.3 million. You just made a statement that there's another 3 million, that there's $3 million in state funding that will be applied to the Board of Education. Is that $3 million incremental to the 259.3 or included within that number? I'm not worried about year-to-year compares on it. I'm just trying to understand, as is Ms. Yang, is the Board of Education's fully burdened spend this year, next year, excuse me, FY27, going to be 259.3 or
Yeah, it's not.
262.3?
It's so I'll answer it. It's in the 259. It is because of the way that we have to spend that money. There is $3 million that is in the city, but within the city budget that is being funded from that grant. But on the Board of Ed, if you're just looking at the Board of Education budget, that 259 includes the $3 million.
Okay. Ms. Yang, I'm sorry to have interrupted your
Oh,
question.
no, that's so now I want to address something going forward, because since we started the phase in, it has been very clear that the projected budget is supposed to increase by 3%. That number has been around since 3 years. So, and every time we're ahead of that 3%, this all just becomes cumulative. So if you were to now project, are we looking to get back on schedule to the 3% for next year? Or are we going to have some other issues where we're going to be at 8% or 6% because this 3% has been out there. It's not a surprise. So will we be back to 3% for next year?
Just to add, as a blended rate, right, Ann?
Yes.
I'm not. I don't think I feel comfortable answering that. Will we be? Is that it's a good goal? I think 3% is a good goal. But for the same reason that we aren't at 3% in this budget, because budgets are what they are. They change every year. And I think to hold yourselves and to hold the city to 3% over a 4-year period is kind of well, again, it's a good goal, but I don't think it's reasonable to be concerned if it goes over that amount, because we have changes in the budget in 1 year. We do a 1-year budget, and from July 1st to June 30th, that amount that we spend changes. So why, to expect that that you could hold to a 3% increase over a 4-year period, to me, it's not reasonable and it's not
Mm.
realistic.
So
It's a good goal, but you know, I don't know that, at least I never
so
took it to be that that was a cap, since we adopted budgets 1 year at a time, not multiple year budgets.
so Jared, again, you weren't here when it started. It was a goal we set as part of the phase in to help keep things manageable. I will ask Ms. Yang's question slightly differently because I understand your point of we don't know what we don't know. However, as you look out into FY 28, are we aware of anything now, contractual commitments, other increases that may hit us that, like this year, will be unexpected in the base rate planning? Said another way, this year we had all sorts of things hit us that were not anticipated, yet they were known. The contracts were known. Increases in healthcare were known, things we were going to have to deal with. As you look out to FY 28, are there any known items that we are going to have to deal with as we consider our budget for FY 28? Similar to FY 27.
So let me maybe ask as an example. You know, we're going to continue to live with some higher than expected increases on the salary side of things. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, if that's the type of thing that you're referring to, but they're going to
Yes.
be, those are going to exceed 3%. The increase in salaries, absent any major changes, will likely exceed 3%.
And what will the number look like? Is that 3.5%, or is it 5%, or is it 10%?
And so we will do that, and I'll know more what that's going to look like. It's not going to be 10%. I'll know more what that's going to look like when we do the long-term plan, you know, by the end of the fall.
Jared, listen, we were here, a number of us were here 3.5 years ago. I know you weren't here. The mayor was here, Tom was here. When we did this, because of the commercial reliance, the shift from residential to commercial, that was a budget shock. Then you came in this year with a budget shock with that fund you're talking about. COVID was a budget shock. When we did this thing 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, the first taxing district was going to be, I think, about 30%. Okay? We did this to reduce costs for the taxpayers. You're showing us now that it's going to be, I don't know where that slide is, it's still going to be between 10 and 16%. Is that correct for the districts?
Yes,
In the past, you didn't care if you went over 3% because we had a fund balance and a rainy day fund. Do we have a rainy day fund anymore, Jarrett?
we do.
After the 7 million you used this year?
Yes.
But
How much?
The fund balance and the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me
I think
phrase. I'm sorry.
we use those synonymous, at least I look,
No,
use those
Jared, excuse me.
synonymous.
Let me rephrase. Do we have a fund balance that will be within line with our uh, the guidelines from the agencies or below?
Probably not. They'll be below what the
Okay, so what the chairman is saying and what
agencies.
what the chairman was saying and what Ann is saying, there's no more room to just say, well, I don't know if we'll have a shock. It could be 7%. Most towns, and I'm sure in Fairfield, I don't think you ever had a 15% increase. Had you in your 50, how many years were you in Fairfield?
I was there for 3 years.
What was the highest? Did you ever have anything close to 15% in one
Uh,
year increase?
you know, it's a different town. They were different times, and
Okay.
I don't
Did
know
you ever
why
have
that's
I'm just
relevant.
saying a basic question. Did you have a 15% increase?
Not that I recall.
Okay. The problem is there's gonna be budget shocks. We're coming up to a revaluation in a couple of years. Do you think the commercial side is going to be take back some of the reliance from the residential side in 2 years when we get through the revaluations?
The only thing I can say is that in the most recent reval that commercial is exceeding residential slightly.
Okay, is it going to go back to where it was, Jarrett, 3 years ago?
I don't know.
If you had
I
to
think,
guess.
I
Do you want me to
think,
do you want me to speculate? Like,
no,
what do you
I want,
want?
I
Okay, I
want to
made my
pause for a
point.
minute.
The point
I want
is,
to pause
it's
for a minute,
different
please.
times. Okay, we're in different times right now, and in all due respect to the mayor, once we start, if we go down that slippery slope of AAA rating down to this, down to that, the city and the schools will be worse off because people will be leaving the town. The wealthy people will be leaving because, first of all, their taxes are going to keep going through the roof. And then for the schools, what do you think is going to happen when the wealthiest people in this town leave? So that's my point. Listen, I just want to
I think we've made the point,
thank you,
right?
Kiernan.
The question was, do we foresee any sizable shocks to next year's, to the FY 28 budget? Jared, you've made your point. We've made ours, right? The point is that as a board, let's come back to look at 27, but understand as we look at 27, we as a board are already thinking about 28 and not allowing for another one of those conversations that says, this is a challenging year. If I hear those words out of City Hall one more time, I'm going to go nuts. So understand that's the point that we're trying to drive home as a board, is understand we were dealt with a very difficult hand this year. Six contracts at one time, exceedingly high healthcare costs, right? A depletion of the internal services fund to help address some of these things. As we look out, we know that you cannot predict the future, but I would ask that as we start to see early warning signs, we discuss them quickly and proactively as a team, because we're not going to go through this again next year with a situation of, well, it just was unforeseen circumstances, so here's another 10 to 16% that the citizens have to absorb. I think we've made that point quite well. I don't think there's anything more to be discussed on that. You understand our perspective. Ms. Yang.
I would just like to put as a benchmark people's incomes. So cost of living increase for Social Security was 2.8%. The state, the state's negotiations were 2.5%. Other towns came in at 3%. So for us to any percentage that we are above the cost of living increases means that the taxes that the city is imposing on the property owners takes up a greater share of their own disposable income. So people will be faced with choices of, do I even get to have a health plan? Am I going to be able to afford having my cars? So I'm just pointing out that everybody else is going for 3% in terms of cost of living, and that should be the target by which the city aspires to. And if that requires cuts, then it requires cuts.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. So noted. I'm going to suggest that we move to the Board of Education presentation because we still have to come back to executive session for some of the things on the city side as well. So Linda, can I turn it to you, please?
Yes, I will share my slides.
Linda, is there
Thank-
anybody else you need me to promote?
Um, yes, Jerry, can you stop sharing, please?
Yes.
Yes, the Deputy Superintendent Sandra Fayos is on, and then Assistant Superintendent Rob Pennington is on as well. If you could promote those two for now, and then we'll see if you have other questions. I may ask for you to promote others.
Okay, Sandra's in process, Rob is in process.
Thank you.
All yours.
Okay,
Linda.
they're both good.
See? Are you seeing my presentation?
No, just your lovely background on Windows.
Are you seeing it now?
No, sorry.
Okay, let me see. I have three screens here. How about now?
There you go.
All right.
It's not in presentation mode, but we're seeing the presentation.
Yes, I will go to presentation mode. Here we go. So thank you again for the opportunity to share with you about where we are with the budget process. I know this is a new process with a new charter, and so we'll be presenting to you where we are with the reconciliation. For this year, with our budget calendar, we don't have the line by line item because we were under the impression that that starts next year, but we will share with you where we are with the process, and we're also available to answer any questions as well. So just to recap what the drivers are, what's shaping the Board of Ed budget for this year. Number one, special education. We're seeing growth in student identification. Provider costs are increasing, so that's a driver that we've talked about. We are looking at addressing some early childhood education. We're seeing an increase in early childhood students coming into the district. So we were fortunate to receive some funding from the state that would allow us to expand full day programming at Wolf Pit and at South Norwalk, but that full day programming isn't fully covered by the Smart Start grant, and so there is funding in this budget to expand early childhood education at Wolf Pit and at the South Norwalk School. Mr. Schmidt has talked about insurance costs. We have similar challenges. We have little over 2,100 employees. As I shared, a third of our employees who are non-teachers are on the state plan. 2/3 of our employees who are insured are on a high deductible Cigna plan. For the state plan, we are with the city. We're seeing about a 13%, 12.5 to 13% increase. On the teachers' health insurance plan, we received a 32% increase in those premiums. That 32% increase is not factored in our budget. Our budget incorporates 15%. We're working to address that so that the taxpayers of Norwalk don't have to bear the burden of that 32% increase. So we're actively working with the union to address that as well, separate from what you see here in these numbers. We're not accounting for that number. And obviously we have contractual increases. We are excited that we have the new South Norwalk School open this year. Each year we're adding a grade, so this budget does include funding of that fourth grade. And then we just have our contracted services, the busing contract by far being the largest. We spend about $12 million a year just on busing our students. That increase this year is about 8% year over year between the three major transportation companies. And then the last major driver are school meals. There was quite a bit of conversation last year with our school meals program that we fund for our students. We are excited that this year, under the governor's proposals, and it seems like the legislature will also approve it, that the governor is expanding free breakfast to students. So we're working with the governor's office to see what that means to us and how Norwalk would benefit from that, because we are also a CEP district where we offer free lunches for all. So that's kind of the drivers, and I just wanted to spend some time summarizing for you what those were. So as far as where we are with budget development, as has been discussed earlier, the Board of Ed back in December approved a budget of a 6.5% increase, which brought the request to about $263.1 million. At the time, that was a $15.9 million increase. The mayor's recommended budget that was shared in February at that time was a 4% increase, which was $9.8 million incremental for the Board of Ed, which brought the Board of Ed budget to 257. As was shared before, there was a difference between the 6.5% and the 4% that the Board of Ed is working to reconcile. As we build the budget each year, we make adjustments as we go through this budget process, update staffing numbers, update insurance cost. As we do those, whatever increases that come out as a result of that, we incorporate that in what we have to reduce. We don't come back to the city and say, our budget needs to be revised upward. So if there's any upward revisions to the budget, we eat that increase and we factor it into what we have to reconcile because we are required to balance to the budget. So with that being said, we were looking at about a $6.9 million variance in what we needed to do to reduce the budget. One of the things that we did this year was we started looking at our enrollment. And as you have seen in the budget book, we have seen some decreases in student enrollment year over year. Some of those decreases can be captured by way of savings. There's some decreases that aren't fully captured. I give the example, if a school loses 10 students, 10 students may not be enough to reduce a class size. It may not be enough to make any changes in the operation of the schools. And therefore, basically, you just absorb that additional cost. If the school loses enough students to where you could have a reduction in a section, then you do have a saving by requiring a fewer teacher, a fewer paraeducator. So with that being said, what we did was we looked at a district-wide review of enrollment, school by school, grade by grade. From that process, we were able to identify about $1.2 million in reductions to the school budget just based on right sizing for enrollment. So we're capturing that as a savings because we have fewer students in certain facilities that allow us to reduce the number of sections. We did that for the elementary schools, for the middle schools and the high schools. With the middle schools and the high schools, the programming is slightly different. And therefore at the elementary schools, you just reduce sections. At the middle and high schools, you have electives. And so there's an additional types of calculations you make. But all in all, we've captured $1.2 million in additional reduction that's working towards our reconciliation plan. A reduction of 6.9 million in a school system cannot be entirely captured without impacting school budgets. So our initial plan was we were looking to capture about $3.1 million in non-school budgets and about $2.5 million in the school budgets. Now, when we say non-school budgets, these are expenses or individuals' positions that don't necessarily work inside a school, but they work in support of schools. And therefore, you could see these reductions not at the school budget, but they would impact this overall school operations. So that's how we're working to reconcile to that 4%. When the Common Council received the budget and they were setting the preliminary cap to forward it to the Board of Estimates and Taxation, they allowed the opportunity for the BET under the cap to appropriate 4.9% to the Board of Education. That would then bring the total Board of Education FY27 budget to $259 million. It was still short of the 6.5% that the Board of Ed had requested. But again, having to reconcile what the Board of Ed instructed us to do was to see how can we protect the schools so that the schools don't have to suffer any additional reductions beyond the right sizing for enrollment. So that's what we did. So with a 4.9% appropriation for the Board of Ed, we are actually able to keep the school-based budgets whole without any reductions on the school side, other than the right sizing for enrollment, which we would do each year anyway, regardless of the budget. And now we're looking at about a $3.4 million reduction on the non-school budget side. So that's where we are with our goals for reconciling the budget. We will be presenting, we're waiting on Monday when we find out what the appropriation is. We'll be presenting to the Board of Education what the plan is to reconcile to that number, and we will be sharing that at our next business meeting at the Board of Ed. But I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of where we are with our reconciliation plans, and those are the only two slides I wanted to share with you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. I'm turning it back to you, Chairman Abrams.
Thank you, Linda. Let me start with Mr. Jelleret, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Linda, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Troy?
Good. First of all, you said it says we have had, it's going to be a declining school base this next year or this year currently, right? Or you're in a declining right now.
About 117, projected 117 fewer students this year than last year.
And what are you projecting for next year?
For next year, we're projecting 117 fewer students. I think the number is this year, October 1, we were at 11,321, and so about 100 students less than that. I have the exact number in the budget book.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Sure.
It's quite hard to go out 2 years, I imagine. I'm just going to go back to what we were saying earlier. It's strange that all the surrounding towns, everyone I read, Stanford, I read Wilton, all local, everyone uses cost of living. Okay, I think the cost of living is 2.8%. It might be. Okay, so we go from 4%. Why don't you do your budgets starting with the 4 or 5% increase rather than you just start your budget and just say we need this and this is what we want? Why don't you try to lock into what the cost of living, what everyone in the world does?
There's a number of things, and so one, that 6.5%, as you know, our budget is cyclical, similar to the city side. The 6.5% is not what was requested by our departments and our principals. That number begins at a higher threshold, and we wean it down to that number to 6.5%, basically maintaining the services that we would like to maintain for that year, given the information that we have at that time. There are some factors that are influencing Norwalk Public Schools that may not influence other schools in the region. For example, our high needs population in Norwalk is close to 70%. High needs in for students who are either on free and reduced lunches, specialized learners, and multilingual learners. You can compare that with a neighboring district that may only have a 25%. Those are big budget drivers because they drive the staffing. And so that's why when you compare a district like ours with the district next door that may not have that level of needs,
Okay.
They may not come in at that
Don't
point.
use the districts next door. Use
Okay.
Bridgeport. Use New Haven. Use New Britain. Okay, are they at 6.9% this year?
I'll share the ones that I know, and they're all funded differently. For example, Bridgeport, they receive almost 50% of their budget from the state, so they're not totally compatible. But I think Danbury is one that's similar to ours district in terms of makeup and composition. Last year, when we had presented our budget, Danbury had put in, I believe it was a 15 or 16% request that year. Even though they get a lot more alliance funding, ECS funding, than we do. So compared to the benchmark districts that you referenced that are similar makeup as ours, have the same amount of transportation needs and so forth, we're pretty much on par with where they would be. And I can get you those exact numbers of what those budget requests are. We're not far off from them because they're similar to us.
And as you know, the grants that we received during COVID and your grants that we went over with you line by line from various areas, you guys hired people for 30 years potentially on 2 and 3 year grants. Do you think that financially makes sense, Linda? You ran New Canaan, didn't you? Run the CFO of New Canaan, right?
Which has a much lower high needs population
I
than
just
ours.
said,
But to answer your specific question on COVID, so we had this conversation, I think, when districts were talking about Cliff 3 or 4 years ago, and we did not retain all of those students that were funded by grants. If you recall, there were quite a number of positions that we did eliminate. The challenge with school districts when it came to COVID funding had restrictions, right? So for example, on the city side, you receive dollars for infrastructure, for wastewater treatment. Those were the parameters with which you could use that funding. On the city side, we were required to use that funding to address social emotional issues and counselor issues and behavioral health issues. Those are not brick and mortar issues. Those require people to address those challenges. Some of those challenges didn't go away. The funding did go away. And so over time, we didn't keep all of those positions that were funded by COVID. We got rid of quite a number of those positions, but the need in this district for those services remained. And so over time, we have been working either with third party partners in areas where we weren't funded. So that's the challenge. And I think a lot of times people make the comparison is why did you hire people with COVID dollars? That's exactly what COVID dollars were designated to do, was to address these issues that can only be addressed by people. And that's the difference between how the money came to the boards and how the money came to cities across the country.
Yeah, but okay, do you agree then you should not be hiring people long term? You should be hiring people if a grant is for 3 years, how long should you hire somebody for?
Um, It depends. And I give the example. And I think I shared this last time. So let's say the city has a policy that is to have body cameras on all police officers, right? And you're planning to do this. Somewhere along the way comes a grant that allows you to get body cameras. So you get those grant because it's part of your mission of having body cameras, and you get to use other people's money for those 3 years before you go into your own plan.
Right.
Some of these challenges that we were looking to address with social behavior were challenges that we have to address these anyway. We were fortunate that we had the COVID dollars that gave us a head start in addressing these issues, but we would have had to address these issues regardless. In areas where we could eliminate positions and eliminate services because the funding went away, we did. We had quite a few providers that were funded by grants that we moved out. We have terminated the grants. We have positions that
Okay,
are no longer here.
I understand. So basically, if you have a 2-year grant that doesn't require continuation, how long should you hire an employee?
If a program doesn't require continuation and if there's no need, you would hire them for the duration of the grant, unless you can offset it with something else. If that need supersedes other needs, that's how you would do it.
Thank you. And my final question, Ann brought up a good point and Ed confirmed it. Your budget is not 6.9, you're getting 2% more than that based on what we said, the way the budget was configured. Is that correct?
Sorry, could you rephrase that again?
I'll let Ann follow up with that because she brought
Okay.
that up, or Ed, but
Sure.
I'm fine. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Troy.
Ms. Yang?
I think Jared did confirm it. So really the baseline, if we were working off of the baseline of what was approved last year to this year's budget, and theoretically looking at that 4.5 as a one-time thing, we're really looking at, instead of 4.9, close to a 6.9 or 7% increase in that budget. If you take the 4.5 out of the baseline for 2025.
It may be an issue of semantics. For us, reinstating 65 positions, band and strings, all of those positions that parents advocated for, the funding to reinstate those, if the intention or if the expectation was that those positions are only funded one time and that funding goes away and then the next year we have to figure out what to do with those positions, then I guess you could make that argument that those were one-time positions. The board's approach and the board's request was that these are positions that are in the buildings, they're serving the needs of the students, and the funding that was allocated for those positions was the funding that the board had requested and that the board needed. We did not see that as a one-time funding. Now, prior years, there were, I think as the mayor had advocated, a series of after budget adjustments that were made that were truly one-time positions. We did those for IT infrastructure, and those were one time. And then the next year, we never built them into part of our base because we considered those as one time. I think last year was different. I think last year was the first year that this funding was for positions. And I do see the superintendent has been
Yeah, I'm
promoted.
sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we
Yes, we
can.
are.
Oh, the superintendent's been trying to get on. I didn't want to interrupt you in mid-sentence.
Yeah, again, I think while she tries to get into the call here,
I think we've,
yes, it is somewhat semantic, but both things are correct, right? The percentage increase from the original approved base is higher than reflected here. That said, the incremental funding was intended to put staff back into positions that were school facing to avoid the problems of to avoid all of the concern expressed by the citizens of Norwalk. And therefore, I understand why you've used that increased number as your base for FY26 for comparative purposes. Both are correct. I understand the perspective of each as we look at this. And I would encourage us not necessarily to look at and play games on year-to-year percentages, but as was discussed, what is the fundamental investment needed to provide the level of support for our students in schools that we're looking for, and where are there opportunities outside of that to find reduction in the budget, much like Lunda has laid out. So we could argue all day long, is it 6.5%? Is it 4.9%? It almost doesn't matter because it's a question of, do we want to retain those positions or do we want to look for savings elsewhere? Ms. Yang.
this was my original question. So if we have fewer students, does that mean we have less ECS funding? Is our ECS funding dependent upon the number of students? So if we have less students, we get less ECS funding. Is that correct?
Yes, because as you know, ECS funding it depends which types of fewer students you have, because ECS funding has a base amount, and then you get an incremental amount based on students with specialized needs, students who are MLLs, based on overall grant list, wealth of the community. So you could see fewer students and not necessarily get less money if your average wealth of the community goes up, if your students that are declining are not necessarily the high needs. So it's a combination, but yes, it could.
Right, but it's a variable cost. It's a variable cost, i.e., less students, less ECS per student.
Correct.
Correct.
And Luna, like unlike the city where we cannot give you $1 less than we gave you last year in your budget, the state you're saying can. Just the dollar amount.
They, mm, they, I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of the math just because of how the calculation works. That there are a lot of factors that go into that number for it to decline year over year. It's not common. And Jared, maybe you could share from your work with the state. I don't recall a district that has received less as a result of a declining enrollment.
Yeah, and especially for an alliance district, I'm fairly certain that there's a hold harmless in there so that they wouldn't receive less money. And the way that the amount that's budgeted for next year, they would not receive less money.
I did get
Could it
confirmation that
have, could
Alliance
they
are
make
held
changes in the
harmless.
future? Yeah, they could. But with the amount of money that's in the formula next year, no, there wouldn't be a loss.
Yeah, and let's also remember that the expected reduction in student population is 1%.
I understand. I'm just trying to get on the fact of fixed versus variable. The other point is on ECS funding from the state. What has been the sort of the cost of living increase in general on that fund? It's been flat, it's been up 3%, or it's been down? What's the number? I think my recollection of the press is that the state is keeping it flat, so it's a 0%. Is that correct?
There's two components to it. I believe there's a component of the funding that goes directly to cities and towns. And then there's a component that goes to the Board of Education, directly to the Board of Education. The portion of the funding that goes to towns has been held flat. I want to say maybe, I'm trying to remember, either 2013 or 17. I don't remember the exact year. But there have been, over time, there have been some incremental increases that have gone to boards of ed. I think the last 2-3 years, we've seen about $1 million annual increase. This year, I think we're capped, we're flat, but we're still waiting to see by May 6th if any changes occur.
So the ECS is flat and we expect flat BOE funding from the state.
On the ECS side, currently, yes, there is momentum and movement, and there are a couple of legislations that are going through that are advocating for recalculating the formula. So we don't know for sure.
Any other
The
questions?
superintendent did have her hand up. I don't know if you see her.
I did not. I'm sorry. Dr. Estrella,
No, I'm here. I'm good. Luna has answered the question, so it's fine.
thank you. With that, any other questions for Linda or anybody else related to the BOE budget? Linda, thank you for the presentation. To the rest of the members of the Board of Education, thank you for supporting that. At this time, we have some personnel-related matters that need to be discussed in executive session. I'm going to ask the BET members to exit this meeting. We all should have received a second link from Zulma in your email. Join that meeting, please, and then we will come back here to close out our overall session.
All right, I'm gonna leave this one going just with no audio and no video for any of the attendees who just want to stay on. And then I'll come back and double check to make sure that nothing can be heard.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, for those of you still on the regular Zoom webinar, it looks like I can't do both from my desktop. So I'm going to end this webinar. When the executive session is over, I will come back and start it up. So please be patient. Actually, Linda, are you staying on?
He might have stepped away from his computer. Do you want me to try to text him?
No, how about Marcia Elborn? Are you still on?
Yes, I am still on.
I can actually assign you as the host of the webinar. Would you mind if I did that
Sure.
while we're in
No,
executive?
that's fine. So we can keep it going.
Yeah, that way it'll stay on and we won't have two
Got it.
recordings and it won't
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
We'll just give it a moment for everybody to rejoin. I believe at this point everyone is back. We are done with our executive session. Let the record show that during executive session, there were no motions made nor votes taken in that executive session. So I just want to be clear on that. As we come back here, I want to first thank Jared, the mayor, the Board of Education for their updates tonight, for the hard work to really try and make some material changes to the budget. I know that that was not easy. I appreciate all of the work. Thank you very much for all of that. I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the meeting in terms of expectations and next steps in advance of and leading up to our meeting on Monday, the 20th. It is now in the hands of each BET member to identify any additional expense reduction proposals specifically that they have for the operating budgets. Each will be treated as an amendment to the budgets as presented this evening. Each will be voted on by the BET individually to get us to an overall approved operating budget on Monday evening. So again, to be clear, I am asking each BET member, if they have any, to come forward with specific additional recommendations for budget alteration. I won't even say reduction because someone may propose something higher. And we will review each as an amendment during our session Monday. In advance of that and following tonight, Jared, Linda, if we could get copies of the materials that the two of you presented by no later than noon tomorrow, that would be appreciated so that we give the BET members the full time to digest everything, to look back at all of the materials we've reviewed in past sessions, and to put together their thinking. Is that acceptable? Okay. Ms. Yang.
Okay, so this differs from previous years. In previous years, we, as a BET, would set a number. And so what you're saying is we have to come up with suggestions on what reduction should be to get to a particular number. Whereas in previous years, we set a number.
Yes, we are approaching this a bit differently this year. There is no question to that. The city and the Board of Ed have presented a number. We will go, my personal opinion as the chair is we will go around and around in circles if we say, I don't like 4.9% or 8.7% on the city side. I think it should be X%. I think it is more expeditious to say of what was presented tonight. Here are additional items that we would like to consider. Vote on each of those items, and that will get us to a number rather than trying to pull a random number out of the air.
I would propose that a little bit differently. I would propose that we come up with a target number based upon greater macro factors to decide what that bigger number is, and then we work through some of the details to get to that number.
I don't see how we're going to get to that number, Ms. Yang. I really don't. I think at this point, it's got to be specific recommendations and thoughts from each BET member if you have them.
Ed, can you tell me why it's changed? I've been on this for 9 years. What changed? What am I missing?
What changed
Every
here,
year, Ed,
Troy,
I said
is
I want 5%, and the CFO says
what changed here is we've been through the detail. We challenged the city and the Board of Ed on numbers. They came back with their best number, looking at the public safety of the city, the educational requirements of the city, the core services numbers for the city. Some members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation do not feel that is enough. Others may feel that that was a fair and good exercise that got us to a number that is appropriate. At this point, to get to a new number, a lower number, if we believe that is the case, I am asking board members to come forward with specific recommendations for reduction, because just pulling a percentage number out of the air based on all of the information we've seen is not
So Ed,
realistic
who's going to
and not
do the
appropriate.
analysis on Monday, Ed? I say I want to eliminate certain things. I have no idea
Then
what the budget number is going to end up. Who's going to do that? Someone's going to do that Monday?
we're going to do that as part of Monday. You're going to come forward and say, I think we should reduce X, Y, or Z further. As a board, we will
So Jared's
vote
going to
on that
prepare.
line item.
He's going to run the items and give us the blended rates and everything.
We have all of the numbers. We've seen everything. We've discussed every single
Okay.
department.
Yes, I know, but in the past, I don't understand why we're changing what we've done in the past. That's the part you haven't answered.
And
I am changing it because I am trying to get to, if the board has specific recommendations for further reduction, that's what we need to understand if we are going to reduce the budget further. To simply say, I want to take an overall number down by a percentage at this point is random in my view. The only way to look at what further reduction we would want to make is to understand from each board member's perspective what specific items they are proposing for further reduction.
Ed,
I have a question. Are we only focusing on the list that was provided today, or what's in scope as far as reductions or
We have
alterations?
been through the entire operating budget. If Kendrick, you have a point of view on an item that could be reduced that was not brought forward today, bring it forward.
But I just want to clarify something. The list that was brought forward today is the new base. That's the new revised budget.
Yes.
So unless you want to eliminate some of those reductions and not do some of those, I suppose you could do that, but based on the sense of where you guys are going, I don't think that's what you're talking about. This is the mayor's revised budget. And so you're voting on her original budget with these revisions to that.
Correct.
With the ability.
I will invite Corporation Counsel to be in the meeting on Monday, just to have that legal backup. This is my first year sitting on the BET, and although I have watched many meetings, living it is a very different experience. And so I can't speak specifically to what you've done in the past, or how Chair Abrams is recommending we move forward this year. But the one thing I will say is further reductions on the city side would result in, concerns about public safety and basic services to our residents. And, our departments, our finance department has worked very, very, very hard to find as many reductions as we can, where our residents are not going to, lose services. So, Chair Abrams, I hear where you're coming from, right? We've put forth our very, very, very best effort here. We recognize how, and I know nobody wants to hear it anymore, because we've heard it for so many years, but we recognize how hard this is. But we really have worked very hard, to put forth our very best effort.
Understood. And all I am asking of us as a board is, if you as an individual board member believe that that new number is not low enough, come forward with specific areas around which you are suggesting further reduction.
Yeah, I know we're
So that they
talking
can be
circular
evaluated.
here. Ed, I'm just saying, I've been on this 9 years. That's not how it's been done. I'm putting it on the record. unless you could tell me why it's changed, unless the charter changed it, or did I miss something?
There is no
You're
charter
just saying
change
you're changing it.
whatsoever.
Ed,
There
I'm
is no
asking you, are
charter
you
change
changing it?
whatsoever. I am trying to get us to
So you're changing the
specifics.
rules of how we set it. That's what I'm asking.
I am not changing the rules. At the end of the day, we will approve an operating budget. I am simply suggesting if you feel an operating budget should be lower than the number presented by the mayor or by the Board of Education, give me a specific area around which you are looking for further reduction.
Okay, so let me just, the role of a board is to set direction and to set the top line. We went through the budget, and yes, we can make suggestions, and I have made numerous suggestions on where the costs can be cut. But yet I am still not expert as to whether or not those individual items are feasible and how it plays in the overall thing. Our job as a board is to set the direction and to set the top line. That is our job, and is then the job of the city and the BOE to come back with how they're going to get to that number.
That's my understanding, Ed.
Can I
appreciate your
can I weigh in?
perspective. Go ahead.
I want to make a couple of comments. So first, my recollection was that last year, Ms. Yang actually made specific proposals. There were proposals around the transit district. There were proposals. I remember there was actually one that I think was accepted, a $10,000 reduction.
Yeah, that was. I'm
There,
sorry.
there were some and that wasn't the only proposal. There were other specific proposals that were made. I don't know that this is a change in direction, but furthermore, I have to take issue with what you're saying because if it's the board's job to set direction and to set the top line, that's your job with respect to the Board of Education, where you have no say in line items. You are the budget making body of the city. And you have the responsibility for determining what's in the budget. That's why we give you all the line items. That's why you have that, and you have the ability to change all those. And I'll say that if there are specific proposals that you want to make, I'll offer myself to you over the next few days to come up with estimates, to let you know what those dollar amounts should be, so that on Monday, if you want to make specific proposals, you'll have a number to go along with them.
Yeah, I agree with Jared and Ed, Troy. Just because something was done historically doesn't mean it's always right. And if we have to understand exactly why we're reducing certain line items, not uh, setting a certain percentage and just saying figure it out. That's not fair to the different departments because we don't understand the impact of it.
That's exactly what we're telling them to do. Is they know what we do. Are you a budget? Do you know the budget by heart in town? I don't.
I'm just saying
We're not being.
that approach forces us to understand why the cut should be made versus just making a flat cut.
And if we are just
Okay,
going,
Ed, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I make an amendment. I'm just saying we make an amendment on Monday. I think that the Board of Ed should be X. That's easy, and I think the city should be, well, just X, and that's all. Will you take that for a vote to the team?
I will absolutely take that for a vote to the
Oh,
team.
okay, I'm finished.
But I will then want to know if you have specific areas around which you
As a
want the city to
secondary. Okay,
focus
I
on.
appreciate that clarification, Ed, because that's the way it has been. Okay.
All right. Anything else this evening?
Can I have one more thing that I want to bring to your attention that may be a consideration for you. which is that we went back to our healthcare consultant on the healthcare costs, and they came back and said that next year's costs would be lower than what we had budgeted. The amount I think was $574,000. We, consistent with what me and the mayor believe about the internal service fund, because that's part of it, is that we need to fund that. And so that is not included in the mayor's recommendations, but I want to make you guys fully aware of that if you chose to, if you wanted to make that reduction, you could do that, but it will have an impact on the internal service fund.
Well,
Yeah,
did the
thank you.
board?
Thank you
Sorry.
for bringing that up, Jared. Yeah, and and I've talked about this many times. It's been irresponsible of the city to not have funded that internal services fund in past years. And it's part of the reason why we're in this situation this year. And I'm very committed, and I have to really hold strong on making sure that we appropriately fund that. And so, so when Jared brought this to me just yesterday or the day before, possibly, my inclination was to, and he and I were in alignment about this, is to add that to, what we were budgeting for the internal service fund. So it would take it up us to, what is it, 5.5-ish million. But that is an area where we could reduce the budget and taxes. So I would leave that up to the discussion with the full BET.
Well, here's just sort of case in point. I listen very closely. I
Mhm.
don't understand this internal service fund. Okay. As far as I could tell, we have what I've heard is a $10 million hole was created as an issue, which brought you to a 10.9% increase. What are you proposing of that $10 million hole is going to be filled in this budget that we're looking at?
So the whole I would argue is somewhere around 8 million. At the end, again, these are rough numbers because it's not just healthcare we're talking about. We're talking about the LAP and we're talking about workers' comp. So we have, and so in order to be able to project for 27, we have to make some assumptions about what's going to happen in the current year. And so my projection of what we know right now is going into 26, we have a negative $2 million net position. My projection going to the end of this fiscal year is that we would be somewhere around -8, -$8 million. And so the point is that we're contributing the amount that we need to contribute to fully fund the LAP, workers' comp, and healthcare for the FY27 year, and also adding to that, putting additional money in to try to fix that gap, that $6 million gap. And so that's the goal. And I believe with what's been proposed right now will get us, plus or minus a million or $1 million or so, will get us close to, by the end of 27, will get us close to being at a net zero. And from there, we need to start building up again to get back into a positive net position, which is why when me and the mayor talked about this, we said let's keep that money in there, even though we're technically contributing more than we need to in healthcare. It's going to help us with that net position, and it's going to help us get more into the black.
So I'm just this what we had here where we showed really the whole as being the increase was the $14 million. Are you saying that 8 of that is because of the net hole that we have in the internal service fund? Is 8 of the 14 part of?
Yes, I would say, yeah, I would say, yeah, about eight of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm making
No,
some
no,
assumptions here.
I'm trying to get at what the whole, because for the most part, the reason for this big increase is because of that number right there. So I just want to make sure that if you're budgeting, i.e., if you're saying that this hole is going to be filled, then next year we're not going to hear that we have a hole in the internal service fund.
Again, I need to leave a little bit of cushion because we have to make some assumptions about the healthcare. The healthcare is pretty set, is fairly well set, not totally, but the LAP and the workers' comp are wild cards, and they could vary. So we've included an amount that is an average plus 20%, and so we an average of the last 3 years plus 20%, and so. I think that's a good estimate of how much should go in there. Could those go over? They could, and we could end up still with a little hole, but we wouldn't need to put, we're not going to need to put in the $8 million additional that we're putting in. It might be a million, it could be 2 million, in the FY 28 budget.
But the current budget is you're putting $8 million into the service fund in this budget that's been proposed.
Well, it's more than that. The total going in there is 14 million.
Yes, but 14 is part of that is sort of contractual increases that you're going to have anyways.
Right.
But so this, but if you've, but is this 14? If you were at the, I don't know what the city side is in your new increase, but are you still budgeting 14, or are you budgeting something less than the 14?
But the 14, we're budgeting the 14.
You're budgeting the 14.
Right. And what I'm saying is that because of that, the new estimation from our consultant that 14 could be brought down a little bit over $500,000. But we risk again, we risk going into next year with a hole in the internal service fund, which is why we chose to leave that funding in there.
Okay. So just if you bear with me, what is the total number that you're because you didn't send us the slides, so, and my memory is not that good. So what is it that you're proposing as being the city side budget? Is it 220 million?
Give me 1 second.
Or was it 221?
So the city side budget is 222, 348, 379. Do you want me to share this again?
Yes, please.
Or I can.
So in the earlier budgets, what you've only done is you've only taken out $4 million from you've taken out $4 million from the original revised estimates. Okay, got it. So that's it's 4.5 is what you've taken.
4.5. 4.5. Yes.
Yes, and what you're saying is there's roughly another 560 that could come out, but you're recommending against it because it creates a potential hole in the internal services fund for FY 28.
Right.
A couple more questions. Jared, where are they with the Board of Ed? I don't know if Linda's still on. How are they were negotiating the 33% increase, and I heard they were negotiating that number. Is it better than 33%? Can you get that answer from Linda tonight or tomorrow?
Lunda's on.
I'm here.
Okay, Linda, it's 33%. I know you're trying to get that down. Have you been successful?
So we went out to bid last week, out for quotes, sorry. We went out for quotes last week. We are waiting. The deadline is the 24th to return the quotes, and so we don't know what the number is. We did hear last week that one of the firms, I believe it was Aetna, Aetna declined to bid just because of the risk of that pool, and their profile. So we have one decline, but we're hoping that somebody will, at least more than one will bid, and then we'll be able to kind of work with the Board of Ed and work with NFT, sorry, and
How,
explore options.
how big a bidding process? How many vendors are involved in that? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any idea. It goes out to quite a few vendors, all the primary vendors in the state. So
More than
Aetna,
five? More than five insurance companies?
it did go to more than five, yes.
Okay, there's competition going on. Okay.
There is some competition,
And
yes.
then I asked the mayor, please, can you, Ann had asked for things, and I don't want to speak for her, but I read her email, but she's asked for things regarding the RMD, and I don't think we've gotten a lot of that information yet. And I
I
would,
thought that was sent today. Was that today?
no,
We,
Or
and
the other day that it was sent,
no, there was a
Jared, that whole
response,
RDA thing?
there
we,
was a response sent, but I don't know if that's all Ann was looking
it,
for.
we have asked for headcount and grants that they're working on for TMP and for the redevelopment agency. And we have not received that. We asked that at the very beginning part of the time. So,
I saw an email
Yes,
with all the RDA for
uh,
sure.
yes, but it doesn't have the headcount and what individual people are.
yeah.
I can answer that question. The head count at the RDA is 7 full-time and 1 part-time position.
Okay, I'd like to know what those positions are and how much each of those positions, what each of those positions entail. And I would like the same for TMP. And and I've asked for what are the grants that TMP is working on.
I think Jim Travers sent you guys
Yeah, he did.
after the last meeting a very lengthy and detailed document about that was what they call their annual report that I think addresses that and goes into a lot of detail about the different grants that they're working off of.
Could you please resend that? Because
Sure. Yes. It
everything,
came directly from him. My recollection was March 11th, I believe.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind resending it, Jared, I'm not finding it in my
Yeah.
BET inbox and I've saved everything.
That could be maybe that's the issue.
I've got it, Jared.
You got it. Okay, thanks, Tom.
and does it give the detail that has been requested?
I believe it gives a detail with regard to TMP, their TMP, so they're not going to give, whatever you're looking for on redevelopment is not going to be in there. But
No.
but for TMP, I think so. It's very detailed. It goes into specifics about grants that they're working off of.
Okay. So yeah, if you could send that on, Tom. I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure
please
yet.
resend the RDA one today. That's very extensive. Although it does not list specifically the positions, Anne, but it very specifically talks about the grants that they're managing and what it takes what the risk would be to not be able to manage those grants. So that is there, but
then I did ask. Okay, both TMP and the redevelopment agency are saying that they're managing the MLK project, the $14 million project. So who's doing what?
RDA will manage the raise grant, which we are still waiting for. We're very hopeful of getting that grant, and we think it's likely we'll get it. That will be managed by RDA. That's the raise grant, which is different. It's a different grant than the MLK grant that currently exists that TMP is managing. Two different things.
Okay, so this is how Monday will end up being very long. What are the two
But I'm
different,
saying,
what are
Mhm.
the, you guys want to do it this way? I'm happy to stay until 3 a.m. till I get the
Well,
answer.
we're legally we can't go past midnight
well, we'll
So-
come back the next day then.
if we have to.
So
And can you also mention you had two things on that email about the board and RMD? I don't know if you want to say it. Maybe the mayor should know if she read the email. I don't know.
Okay,
There's some questions about that.
so
Yeah, okay, let's make sure to get it out. We'll make sure it's resent to you and anything else you need.
I think you should also read, Linnell Jones sent around an email about the redevelopment agency. Number one, in that email, her research showed that there has been no board approval indicating that Mr. Badoli can work in Germany. Number two, Mr. Badoli also has another job, which is being a lecturer for the University of Arizona. Number three is in the papers that Mr. Badoli is authoring. So the first one gave attribution to data was being the city of Norwalk data. The second paper gives no attribution to the city of Norwalk, that they're using the city of Norwalk data, even though city of Norwalk resources were used to produce that survey. If that's the case, then he is in violation of EU privacy laws, data privacy laws. So I don't know what is going on there, but there's a lot of stuff which I don't know, but it doesn't bode well for how one will look at a grant for the RDA. We can talk about it on Monday, but I have some real serious questions. And I don't know if you're going to be able to answer those questions or not. And if we can't answer those questions, then how do we broach a topic like that?
Can I suggest that if you have questions like that, they have their own board, and I think the question should be directed to that board. If you, I read Linnell Jones. I read the details of it. There's a lot of innuendo in there. I think that you have a right, and you should talk to the address questions to the board.
But then at the same token, if we have doubts about this, we can also say, why are we funding $500,000? And you're going to,
I think that this is what we have to focus on, the fact that what this board is looking at is the finances of the $500,000. And that's what we have to keep the focus on, rather than innuendo about what is happening with the redevelopment agency. There was a vote by the board, and I can't speak exactly to when that happened, but they did vote and for that approval. And just to address the University of Arizona, that is an entirely online university. And, there's tons of people who, teach online and have
Yeah.
other jobs.
But
But
Madam
our
Mayor,
job
can I-
here as a board is to focus on the $500,000 request.
So Ann, to that point, if on Monday you believe that is not something we should fund,
correct.
right? The discussion is that item, not the innuendo. It's just, I do not believe we should fund this item.
Correct.
And it's a quick who agrees, who disagrees. Yes, we all understand the surrounding factors, but the conversation for us as a board is, do we agree with the $500,000, or should that come out of the operating budget?
Yeah. Yeah, not only that, but we have to be comfortable with who we deal with vendor-wise. Do we agree, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that we
Okay.
agree with completely, and that factors into
Once
whether or
again, I
not
know they have a separate board. I
right,
understand
but
that. But
that factors into whether or not you believe the funding is valuable to the city.
Correct. Or whether or not we think that, whether it's value or that, well, maybe it is value, that our money, that the taxpayers' money is being wisely spent on an agency which appears to have some issues.
That's as far as that statement needs to go, and then we need to find out who agrees with that point of view, who disagrees with that point of view.
Jared, I think something that would be beneficial for us to talk about on Monday is the amount of tax revenue increase that we have seen through some of those RDA projects. You have that presentation. A lot of that is from the redevelopment agency.
And they
So,
have that, Madam Mayor, we submitted that as part of the open items backup. And
yep.
what the mayor is referring to is the analysis of the enterprise zone programs and the abatement for the mall.
Mhm.
Some of those projects that I believe the RDA has been involved in.
Did you send that recently?
It was with the
Yep.
full packet that we sent last during the two meetings ago.
It was in advance
You
of the
weren't
open
on that
items
one. That was
discussion.
the one that you were in.
No, but I looked at that was that all that information in the open items package?
Yes,
As I,
yes. It's
Yep.
one sheet. It's one sheet in the open items packet.
because in the open items package for the RDA was their annual report. There was more than that.
That was the only thing that they did. We internally, as a city, did an analysis of the enterprise zone programs and the abatement for the mall. Separate. This was a separate item
Yeah, and many of
that
those
was requested.
projects were RDA projects.
Okay, so
It's significantly increased our tax base.
I could pull it up now if you want. If you want to see it quickly now, I can show it to you now.
Yeah, while you're looking
I
at
mean,
that, Mayor,
yeah.
please forgive us for asking all these questions.
It's okay.
Like I
I
said,
do. You got to
I've
ask.
I've been here 9 years. I
Yeah.
never heard of two things this budget season. That fund that Jared says the trust fund on the city side. Have you?
I have. I've known about it as a common council member. I've been well aware of it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it was
So,
never. Okay. And the other
yeah.
question is, oh, I didn't know we had our RD redevelopment until that meeting. You might have known.
Oh, yes.
I
Yeah,
did not know.
I
So this is
have.
why we're trying to catch up.
I see. Okay.
We would appreciate anything you can do to try to assuage our concerns and just ask Brian or the board, is it typical or is it innuendo that the board approved or should approve or didn't approve his position on
I do
Germany?
know they approved it. I do know they approved it. I just don't know. I
Can you
can't tell
just
you the
ask?
exact date.
Can I ask you? Can you just ask him? Maybe I don't know who this person, Leonard. I don't know who that is. Can you just see whether he could just say
Sure. The
yes, it's been
chair.
approved, and here's the board.
Sure.
and here's
Here's the I'm sorry. Here's the board minutes. I don't know.
it's not in any of the board minutes.
It's possible it was an executive session, because it's a
But
personnel
they have
matter.
to say that. They have to say in executive session what they're going into session, and they're not
This
supposed to
is true.
vote on everything.
This
Am
is
I
true.
correct?
Yes.
I'm just asking you we're trying to catch up.
Okay.
I don't think
Yeah, fair
anything
enough.
is
Fair enough.
don't get me wrong. I don't think anything's nefarious. I just knew about that at that meeting.
And as I said, I was unaware of it up and, until the fall. But it was a legitimate vote of the board and they all feel, I've talked to several of the members,
That's great.
have been very satisfied with Brian's work, even though he's, working, via Zoom. He's managed these like very significant grants that
Oh,
have,
I agree.
increased our tax base. And there's a great value there to the city. And that's what we want to see. We want to see our tax base grow. We want to see our revenue grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could you
Yeah.
please just settle this quickly for us?
Okay.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
Okay. Thanks, Troy.
Okay, I remember this is the abatements, but what does this have to do with the RDA?
That
Quite a lot,
they're
actually.
involved in some of these. My understanding is
Yeah.
that they've been involved in some of these projects.
Okay, how am I supposed to know that?
because we said, um,
I mean, this doesn't tell me what they've been involved with.
so the request that came to us, and I think it's more than more than the BET. It's been from common council members. It hasn't been what has the RDA been involved in that is an abatement. It's been what has the city done, generally speaking, for abatements, because people have been concerned that there have been basically giveaways to developers and property owners of abatements, and that the other taxpayers are footing the bill for it. Separate from the RDA's involvement in these. This is just general. Here is what here are the projects that the city has that are enterprise zone projects and the malls and the mall. And this is the analysis.
Okay, well, maybe we can go through that then. We can go through that on Monday, I guess.
In advance of
Yeah, and in the
Monday.
meantime, maybe we can find, we can, just do some investigation on our end and delineate what was an RDA project.
That was going to be my
Yeah.
ask. Is there a way to go through this list prior to Monday and indicate
Sure.
what had been RDA?
I think so. Yep.
Because I did see this list. I didn't realize it was connected
Yeah.
to the RDA. I thought it was pursuant to the request of what are the properties. And are those all of the properties that have abatements?
These are all of the enterprise zone properties that have abatements and the mall. It does not include, we do abatements for affordable housing projects. Those kinds of abatements are not included in here because that's typically the concerns that we've heard from residents and members of boards has been these properties. It hasn't been so much with the affordable housing developments that those are done under a different statute and for different purposes because they typically affordable housing developments aren't viable without some kind of abatement.
Speaking of which, with the mall, Mayor, do you know whether the pending sale of the mall, does the abatement of 2 or 3 years go with it to the new purchaser?
I think probably Jared's in a better position to answer that accurately. We are meeting with some representatives tomorrow to get, more understanding what's going on there. But Jared, do you?
So the thing I would say, and I'm really not trying to avoid the question, but the current agreement with the mall goes out to grand list year 27. And so after in 27, so in the 29 fiscal year, they would be paying 100% of whatever the value of the property is at that time. What happened if there's a sale by then, what happens at that point? I don't know because I think there's still there's going to be negotiations that occur. And also the value is going to change because there's going to be a reval between now and then.
Yeah. Is the value going up or going down?
I don't think we can answer that question right now.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. So if you're going to be meeting with the real estate people, I'm sure they can give you an estimate of value because it's based upon the cap rates. So I'd be curious as to whether that value is 87 million or 200 million, because right now it's assessed at 157, which is 70% of the market value. So right now they think the market value is over 200 million, but I suspect that the actual market value is going to be less. So I would suspect that the real estate people will have a bracket for which they think that this property is worth at this time. So it would be nice for us to try to understand what that is rather than kind of learning from the press.
Yeah, not
But-
only that, but if the property sells tomorrow and the abatement's off, that's cash in our pocket immediately.
No, I think the abatement, yeah, Jared
Does
can
the abatement carry with this the new owner? That's all.
I think that's what I'm saying is I think that's to be determined.
I think
I
I
would,
suspect it's in the letter because there's a specific abatement letter. And I would suspect that the abatement goes with the property and not necessarily the owner of the property. I don't know if it probably does not have change of control provisions in it. But I think that's a quick read of the abatement letter that 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 the city would have given to GGP at the time at the time of the initial construction.
So would he have Mario look at that? And you think?
Yeah.
yeah, we can.
And he will, yeah, and I actually asked him, he'll be in the meeting on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, Mary can look at it, or I
Please
think
have him give us some guidance because that will be a question because that could be helpful. I don't know.
And there may be legalities around some of these questions that, we may or may not be able to discuss. So, but we'll find that out from him.
Thank you.
it's a simple. Actually, if Jared could just pass around the abatement letter, then we can actually all look at it. The abatement letter is available through FOIA. And it's probably a 2 or 3 page letter that lay out the terms of it. So if you could just find that from the assessor and send that around, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay.
Anything else for this evening? Seeing nothing else for this evening, may I get a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Troy. We are adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good night.
You.
Good night.